Good day, Chief here for CTT. I'm going to try to wrap up my Fort Lewis experience. Hopefully I will today, I don't know. Right after I got back from that vacation that I talked about previously and got into contact with my branch manager and said, hey, you're going to South Korea for a year. I more or less had like about less than 6 months left. I was due there to be January and I found out in August. My brigade commander, who I knew as a captain promotable from Fort Riley, the one that came down while I was sweeping the square in the motor pool and started his sentence. You know, there comes a time when somebody's been in the shop too long. That's captain. He's now light colonel, or is he a full colonel? Can't remember. Have to look. But he's the colonel of the brigade now. And he volunteered to do the combined federal campaign. Now it seems like wherever I've been, I've always been part of that. There's a couple stations where I had nothing to do with it, but like I said, I did it at my second AIT. That's my introduction to that. So now I'm doing it again, and I think I've already talked about this. There was two captains. One of them was totally worthless. Had a sergeant first class, womanizer, and couple, about 3 specialists. Maybe one was a private first class, I don't remember. So that's all I did until I left. Much to the displeasure of me no longer running the single source section. Now I'm CFC cadre, but they put me under another major who has no say in what he can do with me, and he is irate about that. He really is. He wants to see me on a daily basis, which he can't. He wants me to perform duties for him, which I can't, because I am stuck on CFC until I leave that place, because it's get the ball rolling, as we say in the military. You got to do a luncheon first to do the kickoff. You got to coordinate with all the civilian functions on the base. You got to coordinate with all the military functions on base. You got to coordinate with the general staff, because, you know, it's the general's report card for this CFC campaign, so to speak. He's the overall one in charge of that. So we had to, so like I said, they gave us an office. It was in the basement of a building, and that's where I operated until I left. And this major, who grew to not like my situation very much, had to write my end of tour award, and no matter all the information that I gave him for an end of tour award, he wasn't happy, because he did not get to manipulate me in the way that he wanted to. He wanted to see me really work hard for him, not for the combined federal campaign. 9/11 happened after we started that. Now, some people may or may not remember where they were when 9/11 happened. Since we're on the West Coast at Fort Lewis, that means the East Coast is 4 hours ahead of us, or 3 hours ahead of us. So I'm listening to my radio station, a rock and roll station, on the way to work, or on the way to PT actually. And they said a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. Okay. Years ago, a plane crashed into the Empire State Building, but they just said a plane at that time. And I just got a gut feeling that something wasn't right. So I listened a little bit longer, and they didn't say any more information. So I don't know if it was the first plane or the second plane. Probably the first. So I get out to the PT field, and we're supposed to be having officer PT. And I look around the field, and there's only brand new junior warrant officers that arrived from their graduating class that are on the PT field. I don't see any regular officers or anything else. And I seem to be, even as a Chief Warrant Officer 2, I seem to be the senior one out there, and I just look around and the PT field just did not feel right. There were groups already performing, getting ready, the sun was shining, and I just looked at the other warrant officers that were there and I said, something is not feeling right. I think we need to get to work. I said, did you guys hear about a plane crashing into the World Trade Center? And they all kind of said, no, we've been out here. So I said, I think we need to get to work. So we went to work, and of course everything was, yep, here comes Snickers. He heard me. He was dead asleep. Yes, Snickers. Come here. Yeah. Have to put you in your room again, huh? Have to lock you up. Say hello to everybody. Say hi, Snickers. Okay, he's in my lap. So I get to work, and of course, back then CNN was reliable, and we had that station going on all the time to make noise where I worked, because where I worked, you always had something playing in the background to make noise, to blot out conversations, but everybody was running around. And then of course, I think by then the second plane had probably crashed into the second tower, and then later on the one that crashed into the Pentagon, and then later on the other one that crashed into the field. I still have not watched that movie about that particular plane. Being a military member and knowing what those poor people had to probably go through in a way, I mean, it's a military situation. Regardless, yes, they were a bunch of civilians. There were probably military or former military members on that plane, and they knew that what they would do would sacrifice themselves for America. My hats go off to all those people on that plane, and on the other planes too, and the Pentagon, because we lost a lot of people that day. Now I'm off track. So yeah, 9/11 happened, so that kind of put a little bit of a curve on what we were doing, but General said, nope, we're going to drive on with the Combined Federal Campaign, because that is something that we do every year to you know, get the soldiers to volunteer some of their funds on a monthly basis or a one-time check to support various organizations, activities, and whatever within the government and outside the government. So that was going to drive on. So that was, we were still stuck doing that. And then of course, once again, after a few days of actually working inside my facility, it was right back out to CFC and drive on with that. So a lot of our activities, we didn't try to incorporate what had happened on 9/11 into the thing, because there was a huge blood drive, and then after they started the blood drive, they're like, you know, this only supplies the local sources. We don't transfer blood between states. But of course, there was a huge blood drive, and of course, you know, all the hospitals in the area really appreciated that. I gave blood, but they can't use it, because I was in Germany during Mad Cow, and I found out that I should not give blood. I gave blood. I went with a bunch of soldiers, and they all gave blood, got their free cookie, got their bandage slapped on their arm, or sitting up, joking and talking, and they all looked at me and said, Chief, you're pale. You're only given a pint, Chief. You're pale. I'm pale. I'm a good bleeder. They took the blood. I told them, yeah, I was at, you know, and they're like, well, we may not use this because you were in Europe during Mad Cow. And I'm like, well, I gave. So I spent the rest of the time, like I said, doing CFC. That kind of sort of ended maybe about a month before I started packing up my stuff and getting ready to leave. And I was going to take, I think, 2, 3, I don't think I took a full month of leave. So I was out of there before Christmas. I went and spent Christmas with my parents. I should say my mom, because my dad was in the nursing home at that time. And of course I had to go visit him a few times. And as I said before, I think I've talked about this, it was just my dad's shell, my dad's body, but there was a person trapped inside that could not communicate properly. And I don't want to be a downer, but like I said, I think I mentioned before that he looked at me with very serious eyes and said, "You're doing too many watches." And I just shook my head and I said, "Yeah, you're probably correct. I'll make sure I don't pull as many as I should, even though I wasn't in the Navy." I think this might wrap up Fort Lewis. Of course, I'll probably rack my brain and come up. There are two subjects that I will not talk about. I will not go into depth on my TDY when I was 6 months, during what I consider my black ops, because I was in civilian attire. I will not discuss that. And I will not discuss an incident that happened while I was in the safety class, because I ran across somebody with the big red one on their patch, and this guy was a rotor head, and he saw my big red one on my sleeve, and we got to talking, and I'm not going to talk about what we talked about. And as somebody said, that's all I got to say about that. So there's two things that I will not talk about. I might talk about them later in another video, because I will talk, I'm thinking about, I should probably do some videos where I just talk about aspects of the Army, like movers, because that's going to be a big subject, because this is where I'll have trouble with movers when I go to South Korea, because my stuff will be in storage for a whole year. So this is Chief out. Remember, freedom is not free. Keep supporting Ukraine. My fiance's stuck in Ukraine. She's taking care of her grandmother, and she's scared because she says she sees missiles fly overhead. And I said, well, I know what you're feeling, because I said I saw a lot of outgoing missiles, which I did on a daily basis when I went to the first Gulf War, because you could hear them and see them. And I think I have a couple pictures where I actually capture some of them mid-flight, and I think I think I captured an artillery round, because if you can see them occasionally as they go various speeds throughout the space or the sky. Snickers, you need to say, hey, you need to tell everybody goodbye. Tell them freedom's not free, even for cats. Okay? Can you tell them that? Snickers is now 18 years old on July 7th, as we picked for his birthday. So happy birthday, Snickers. And remember, freedom is not free.